Sue, are you doing the roll call then?
Yeah,
Okay.
unless you want to.
Go ahead. I'll let you. Oh, I got one. Welcome, everybody. We'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sue, if you'd like to do the roll call.
Okay, Karen Flatness, absent. Joanne Maloney.
Here.
Rich Mueller.
Here.
Travis Rell.
Here.
Neil Schlage. Absent. Dan Schmidt.
Here.
Rick Schultz.
Here.
Okay, we have a agenda in front of us. Any changes or anything?
No.
Dr. Carlson? No? Take a motion to approve the agenda then?
I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Mueller, seconded by Mr. Schultz to approve the agenda as presented. Sue?
Roll call vote. Karen Flatness, absent. Joanne Maloney.
Aye.
Rich Mueller.
Aye.
Travis Rell.
Aye.
Neil Schlage. Absent. Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye.
Okay, no teaching and learning feature, and no public comments again this month?
Correct.
Okay, moving into the administration reports.
Well, thank you. I'm going to really leave it to any questions. The two principals were excused for this evening, but I'm happy to respond. There's some good information in their reports, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to respond as best as I can. Otherwise, I'll leave it to the written reports.
Any board member comments this evening?
I would just like to thank the candidates that are running for school board this year. I would also like to commend the Education Association for the forum they put together, and I applaud all the candidates for participating in what was a very well-managed and a refreshing type of a forum in today's world. I was very proud of each and every candidate. So thank you to all of those that are putting their name on the ballot and offering their service to the NRHEG school district. Thank you.
Okay. Next regular meeting is scheduled for Monday, November 16th, here at the Secondary Media Center at 6:30 p.m. Moving into the consent agenda, Dr. Carlson.
Thank you. In your consent agenda this evening, you have the minutes from the September 21 school board meeting. You have board bills totaling $2,563,332.65. we received one donation from Alina Health Owatonna. It was a donation of 200 face mask containers that were distributed for staff both years. Under workforce and employment, we have three people joining us. Michaela Helgeson is a new health assistant in our health office, primarily servicing the secondary school. And Michaela is really employed as more of a full-time or 7-hour per day assistant. We have Crystal Studier, who is a part-time health office assistant who is primarily assigned to the elementary school. And those two have been added primarily to assist this year especially in the additional coverage needed regarding COVID and additional needs in our health offices. We have Lauren Harrelson, who has been added, and you'll also on the next agenda item see as a member of a job share team. And so this would be a part-time position as a secondary paraprofessional. As I just mentioned, the job share teams, the board has approved these annually, and these have been revised because of some changes in personnel. And so we want to bring this to the board tonight as far as updating the para-professional job share teams. The first one is for Karen Naif and Lauren Harrelson. And the second one is for Lori Tomsky and Megan Bell, who, again, Karen, Lori, and Megan are current employees. We congratulate and thank Jolene Victoria for her 25 years of service to the district. She is planning to retire effective December 23rd. So thank you, Jolene. There's a list of coaching contracts, and I'm just going to let the board look at those as they are referenced and listed. These are, we believe, the remaining fall contracts as best as we know. And I know that Mr. Stork is online tonight, probably more for another agenda item later on. But again, administration is recommending these contracts as Mr. Stork has recommended as well. You'll see that later in recommended actions, we did not include Ms. Karen Flatness part of the consent, knowing or thinking that she would be present tonight. We will continue, we will still leave that where it's at, even though she is absent. Annually, you have approved partnering with the Owatonna Public Schools for deaf and hard of hearing services. And so we're asking for your approval to renew those services again tonight. There has been a little bit of an increase in the hourly rate from a year ago. And this is again for about 13 hours of services provided. Also annually, the board needs to take action on the assurance of compliance with state and federal law prohibiting discrimination. And so you're asked to, as part of the consent, to approve that. I can tell you that we have make sure that we have posted properly, not only physically in places within the building, but also on our website. Under board governance on the consent, you have the second reading of 2 policies that the board approved under the first reading, policy 522 and policy 413. And you may recall from the September meeting that at that time, we asked for approval of the first reading, and it took effect right away. And so we've made it through a month. Now we're going to ask you to approve the second reading, and then those policies can be in place and not having to be reviewed until the next recommended time. And then finally, in the consent agenda, the report out on the state enrollment options. You have one student from our district open enrolling to another district, and we believe it's specifically for online instruction. Okay, I think I have covered everything on the consent agenda. If you have questions, or if you want to pull an item out to vote on it separately, you simply need to request that. Otherwise, we'd be looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Schlake, seconded by Mr. Routh to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Roll call vote, Joanne Maloney,
Aye.
Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Routh,
Aye.
Neil Schlake,
Aye.
Dan Schmidt,
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye.
Motion carried 6-0.
Okay. Moving on into finance, the MSHSL COVID fees. Dr. Carlson.
Thank you, and I believe Mr. Stork is online. I'm going to present this, and if the board has questions, between Mr. Stork and I will do our best to answer any questions you may have. So the board is aware that over the last several weeks, if not months, the Minnesota State High School League had forwarded to member school districts a revised payment fee schedule for this school year. And in your board packet, you have the documents that were presented, I think, back in August to school districts. And so we come tonight to really formally present this to the board, to ask the board's consideration of approval for especially the 2 installments of the COVID-19 installments that are due in November and February. We have already paid the August invoice, which for the most part, that the annual membership fee and the activity fee registration, those are costs that we've typically had each year. Now, there's been increases to those, as well as a $1 per student fee that I have up on the screen right now. But we have gone ahead and paid that August invoice, and tonight, what we're looking for is your consideration to move forward in paying the additional 2 installments, which are new. And they're, I guess, specifically, they're really to address the budget gap that the high school league is experiencing, in many ways due to the COVID, many ways to help fill the gap of a lack of on the revenue side, because of so much of the revenue might come from, for example, state tournaments and things like that. So that's in short what the board is being asked tonight to review, examine, and then consider approval. So with that, are there questions? Oh, sorry, I meant to add that. We do intend, we believe that there is a funding source here. We can use some of the allocated CARES Act money funding. And I know Ms. Christopherson is on remotely as well. And in the event I get any of this wrong, and I know that they'll speak up, but I did want to add that we intend to use that as a funding source for this.
I guess I have a question. I wish I knew how much was COVID versus their shortfall for their plan. I mean, we have to go to our taxpayers to get a voter to pay stuff. Are they just gonna continue to bill us like this to cover their shortcomings? I mean, I know you probably can't answer that, but I get what.
Sure, and I'll do my best. I guess what we know at this time is what we're looking at. And we don't know, I don't think we can predict what the future might hold, even beyond this year. But this is what we have and what we're told. And I don't know, Mr. Stork, if you're there, do you have anything else to add?
I really can't say either, I guess, to be honest with you. I know, it's tough to see this number all at once when we really didn't see it coming. We really didn't have a forecast or projection of this. And I think, like Dr. Carlson mentions, it's hard to predict what the future might hold. I don't know that we're going to, well, obviously we're not holding state tournaments right now for this fall season. I know the plan is not to hold them for winter and spring season, but as we've all seen, things can change in a hurry. And, if we don't hold the state tournaments, they're not generating much revenue, so that does concern me. But I think if we were to see something like this come about again, that we would look at I think the high school league would be forced to look at some different options of funding or something. But, it was a shock to everybody. I'm sure you guys have seen it in the media and everything. We knew there would be some increases. And like you said, Neil, too, I think there was already some financial strain on the high school league prior to COVID, and that just compounded it.
Dr. Carlson, what is the normal fees, and do we still pay them at the same time as this?
Could you repeat that, Mr. Miller?
I'm just wondering what we normally pay the state high school league as what these funds are, and when do we still pay them, like in November and February, like they're asking for?
Ms. Christopherson or Mr. Stork, do you know offhand what our typical schedule has been?
Yeah, I'm logging in right now. Had you told them last year's amount? I mean, we typically pay that in August, once a year.
I think it was on a prior communication, but I don't have that in front of me tonight.
Yeah, I'll have it in just a second. But yes, we don't follow that November schedule. We've always just paid it annually in August. I think you guys approve it at a July or August board meeting, and then we go and pay it from there.
Yeah, we're typically billed in August for it.
Yeah, it was about 2,000 something, wasn't it, Dan? The tough part for me is, well, yes, we can use this CARES relief money, this ESSER money. You didn't want to, for a second, think that money was announced and then these bills came, but at this point, I don't know what our choices are.
Yeah, in the past, what we've paid is $110. Well, last year, I think it was $110 per activity. And then there was not the $1 fee per student. So that was an increase this year. We kind of expected that, but obviously the payments in November here, in October, November, were a shock to us.
Right, so in August of 19, we paid $2,200.
Yeah.
All right, and then the August bill this year, of course, you heard, was $39.31.
And that was an increase from 110 per activity to 160 per activity, plus the dollar fee for each student.
So we're going total package. We're going less than $3,000 to almost $11,000.
Right, that's it. What happens if people do not pay it, school districts? Any idea what that means?
Well, we believe that if there isn't payment, then you're not going to be a member of the high school league, and it's really hard this year especially to project and know even what might happen. Will there be any state tournaments this year, and deep into sectional play and quarterfinal? We really don't know that. We just feel that it's important because of the unknown to maintain our membership, and because of the alternative, which again, we don't know what's yet to come, but
And Dr. Krause, you're correct. Unfortunately, what that would mean would be we would no longer be a member of the Minnesota State High School League, and our activities would not really be able to play anyone else because I don't know of any schools not joining the league again. And if you are a member of the league, you're not allowed to play a school that's a non-member of the league.
Thank you.
And I know we want to be supportive of our Minnesota State High School League as well as following state guidelines on education, and it's just such a slap in the face going from 2,000 to 11,000 in 1 year when we're out seeking referendum. But
And I agree, it is extremely difficult to see that come across the board all at once like that. And, I do want to say that the high school league has been wonderful to work with. They've obviously held some tremendous tournaments. I can't say enough about the work that the high school league does, the guidance that they give us as member schools. At the same time, I totally understand too, it is a shock.
Well, and wasn't there some concern too that if you opted out, I guess for lack of better words, that there's no easy path to getting back in? For some reason, I thought I saw something about that in a previous correspondence.
I guess I can't speak to that, I'm not sure.
Okay.
In the correspondence communications from the high school league, has there been any discussions as to this is like a COVID-only sort of fee that, they're not going to use this to be an ongoing, well, gotcha, you paid it last year, we're going to keep charging it. This is just sort of exceptional circumstances and we'll return to normal when we can?
I'm not aware that, go ahead, Mr. Stork, sorry.
No, I'm sorry, I was just going to say that's my understanding, I guess. I'm not aware of anything in writing that says that. And I don't know if it mentions that, to be honest. I don't have that form in front of me, Dr. Carlson, but if it's a one-time payment type of thing, if you see the payment, it's actually called the COVID-19 payment, so hopefully there isn't more COVID-19 payments.
Right, and I think that this document only is addressing what they know and they're budgeting for this year. I'm not aware that there's been anything either way to project what may be the case after this year, and or if there'll be any further adjustments yet this year. I did want to say that I have been in contact, some communication with the Executive Director Martins, and he has responded just recently and just asking questions about the fee structure and so on. And his response was that there'll be some continuing dialogue, some engagement sessions with membership schools to have more discussion about maybe potential adjustments with the fee schedules. I don't have any reason to believe that will happen, but I just wanted the board to know and the public that there has been communication asking more for the rationale of the fee structure, and so that I believe those discussions statewide will continue with membership schools, and so I was very appreciative of the reply from Mr. Martins, at least acknowledging our email.
Well, I would guess with raising it, adding that student and raising that $50 activity, I get it. They need to have money in their coffers to run a good structure. So I would think this would do it, and that COVID is hopefully going to be a one-time deal. But and I don't know if they would ever go backwards from the annual charge. If they feel they overcharge people and they were swimming in cash, I would think they would be good about that. But I understand we got to let them function as a Minnesota State High School League too, and let them have some dollars. But I guess I just feel no choice but
we
to
could
pay
look
it.
through the document closer. Some of you may have it right there, but there's been they've worked on reducing their expenditures as well. And because I'm just hopeful that there'll be ongoing conversation and communication about this. again, I want to be clear that I know as of Thursday, in my agenda letter, I had mentioned that as of then, I had not received any communication back. Since then, I have, so I thank Mr. Martins for that.
That is, I hate to do it, I'll make a motion to approve it as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Schlake, seconded by Mr. Schultz, to approve the payment of the additional MSHSL membership COVID-19 installments totaling $7,000 to be paid in 2 installments according to due dates of November 30th, 2020 and February 28th, 21.
Roll call vote. Joanne Maloney,
Aye.
Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Ralph,
Aye.
Neil Schlake,
Aye.
Dan Schmidt,
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye.
Motion carried 6-0.
We have some budget transfers. Dr. Carlson, would you like to explain those, please?
Yeah, I'll just make some comments. I know Ms. Christopherson's online, and she might add some comments as well. We are working with our auditor. We're looking at still trying to go back to looking at our fiscal year 20 and still making some budget transfers, trying to acknowledge and recognize some of those things, especially in the spring, on the expenditure side, that out of some areas, so for example, out of our community ed and food service areas, and then also the major one is, as you recall last month, with the Knutson construction report about the $300,000 in long-term facility maintenance money that we've been intending to transfer to our construction fund. And so tonight, it's been recommended that we actually have a resolution that talks about the transfer of funds for the board to approve. And so the resolution, which I have up on the screen, really, if you go down to the bottom, the whereas, that the school board has determined that the criteria identified under the specific law has been satisfied for a fund transfer. We have listed the 4 transfers, and the idea here that these would be reflected yet in fiscal year 20. Ms. Christopherson, do you have anything else to add that would help to set this up as far as the resolution?
No, I think you covered it all.
Okay. So we feel that it's appropriate to do this, and I think that what you'll see then is next month we are planning for our audit report to be presented, and that this will be reflected in that, as well as we continue to work with our auditor in preparation for that meeting. Are there specific questions to the transferring within these, or from one fund to another, or the resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution regarding fund balance transfers as presented.
Second.
Roll call vote. Joanne Maloney,
Aye.
Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Ralph,
Aye.
Neil Schlake,
Aye.
Dan Schmidt,
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye.
Motion carried 6-0.
Moving into board governance, we need to set the date for the January 2021 organizational meeting. Dr. Carlson, any information on that you'd like to add?
As in the past, it's recommended that the school board holds its organizational meeting as soon in January as possible. And so it's the recommendation for the board's consideration to set that meeting for Monday, January 4th at 5:30. Otherwise, I'd be happy to take questions. Otherwise, be looking for a motion to set the date for the organizational meeting for Monday, January 4th, 2021 at 5:30.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Maloney, seconded by Mr. Schlake to approve the January 4th, 2021 organizational meeting. Sue?
Roll call vote, Joanne Maloney,
Aye.
Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Ralph,
Aye.
Neil Schlake,
Aye.
Dan Schmidt,
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye.
Motion carried 6-0.
As with past years, first 2 months we're running into a holiday being on that normal meeting evening of the Monday of January and February of 2021. Looking to move those. Dr. Carlson?
Yes, thank you. It would be just moving them to the Tuesday immediate following. So it would be Tuesday, January 19th, and then Tuesday, February 16th.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second it.
Motion made by Mr. Mueller, seconded by Mr. Schlake to approve Tuesday, January 19th and Tuesday, February 16th of 2021 for the regular school board meeting dates. Sue?
Roll call vote, Joanne Maloney,
Aye.
Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Ralph,
Aye.
Neil Schlake,
Aye.
Dan Schmidt,
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye.
Motion carried 6-0.
We need to set the special board meeting to canvass the election results. Dr. Carlson, you have information on that.
Yeah, thank you. And even since the board packet, I did make a revision today. Thank you to Ms. Colsa for assisting, being in contact with our county auditors. This is a unique year, and we've communicated that there was a communication out to the counties that, again, they must allow up to 7 days for any mail-in voting and to count those that are postmarked appropriately. So then there's a ripple effect on the rest of us. And so we've been working the last few days, and we think that there's a high level of confidence that we will get the results from the counties sometime on Thursday. We don't know when on Thursday, however. And so my recommendation is that the board set the special meeting to canvass the results on Friday, November 13th. We feel pretty confident that at some point we're going to have the results by the end of the day Thursday, whether that's 4 or 5 or 7 p.m. And so it's up to the board. We could set this at a 7:30 a.m. meeting. It is also possible that you could set multiple special meetings, and in the event that for whatever reason data isn't available, there's some kind of holdup, then you could just simply cancel and go to the next one. What's not negotiable or what's not flexible is the school board needs to canvass the results on Friday, November 13th. So that's the update for you. So my recommendation is we could look at a 7:30 meeting. We could look at a 3 p.m. meeting. We could just look at a 3 p.m. meeting to be on perhaps the safest side. But I'll leave it to the board of what you want to do. The motion is, I think it would be advisable to go with Friday, November 13th and not try to do it late on Thursday, the 12th. I think that would just be cutting it a little too close. So what is the wishes of the board as far as setting that special meeting? We will need a quorum of the board, as always, for that canvassing of the election results.
I'll make a motion to do it 5 PM Friday, November 13th.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Mr. Schlake, seconded by Mr. Mueller, to approve Friday, November 13th at 5 PM. Is that correct? As the date and time of the special board meeting to canvass the election results. Sue?
Roll call vote, Joanne Maloney,
Aye.
Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Rowe,
Aye.
Neil Schlake,
Aye.
Dan Schmidt,
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye.
Motion's carried 6-0.
Moving on, we have first reading of Board Policy 533. Dr. Carlson, please.
Thank you. The Wellness Committee, first of all, our school district has a Wellness Committee that involves a number of stakeholders, staff and students, parents, and even Ms. Flatness as far as board representation. We've had this in place for a number of years, and in the past, when there have been revisions to the policy and brought to the board has accepted that, knowing of the input and the engagement from the Wellness Committee. So that's one reason why in the past it has not gone to the board's policy committee. This evening, there's just, this reflects changes that were actually done last spring, but it just never made its way to the board for review and approval. So we're doing that tonight, and there are very few changes or edits. Let me see if I can scroll down here. That the committee looked at, and again, if you go like down to page 6, there's something inserted about water bottle filling stations. And remember that this was last spring, which even looking ahead, that was an appropriate thing we were doing anyway, as far as starting to put more of those in our buildings. There isn't really anything that significant, in my opinion, as far as edits or changes. I'm just scrolling down. We have where you can find the wellness policy on our website. And what will happen is, by the way, there's a listing on page 11 of activities. And what will happen is the Wellness Committee will be meeting in the coming weeks and will review again. But it was really necessary to at least bring a first reading tonight of this policy. So I'm going to leave it at that. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to do my best in responding to those. Otherwise, this would be a first reading, and then the second reading, the plan would be to include that on the November 16th agenda on the consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Mueller, seconded by Mr. Schultz, to approve the first reading of Board Policy 533, which is our wellness policy. Sue?
Roll call vote, Joanne Maloney,
Aye.
Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Rowe,
Aye.
Neil Schlake,
Aye.
Dan Schmidt,
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye.
Motion carried 6-0.
A couple of workforce items. First up, Karen Flatness junior high volleyball coach contract.
Yes, as I alluded to as part of the consent, we had intentionally set this aside under recommended action so that Ms. Flatness would not need to abstain from the entire consent agenda. So we've left it here for tonight. We would just need a consideration and a motion to approve Ms. Flatness to serve as junior high volleyball coach.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Schlake, seconded by Mr. Schultz to approve Karen Flatness as the junior high volleyball coach. Sue, please.
Roll call vote, Joanne Maloney,
Aye.
Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Rowe,
Aye.
Neil Schlake,
Aye.
Dan Schmidt,
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye.
Motion carried 6-0.
Moving into the 2020-2021 superintendent work goals. Dr. Carlson, please.
Yes, thank you. I had the opportunity to work with board chair, Mr. Schultz, on these to present to the board the goals, and I would just make a couple of comments. First of all, probably more so than ever in the past, I believe that these goals are aligned. In fact, most of them are worded very closely to the board's goals that the board approved last month. And you know, that's actually recommended that the board's goals should become the superintendent's goals in many ways. So we're presenting these to you tonight. The first goal is a focus again this year on the school learning plans due to the 3 different learning plans, and to make sure that not only have those been developed and implemented, but to monitor and evaluate. I've offered some indicators that the board can use throughout the year, whether at mid-year or at the end. This is just a few, and the board will likely have more that you can apply and use to assess the progress made. The goal 2 is, again, aligned with the board's goal in this area of the learning model, and making sure that we're continually monitoring, examining the case data and the factors, and involving communication as well. And again, you can see some indicators, some draft progress indicators listed there. Goal 3, it's under the area of finance, as well as goal 4, tightly aligned with the board's goals. The first one is more focused on the upcoming referendum, and then the second one is more broadly for the adopted 2021-2022 budget that will be worked on throughout this school year. Goal 5, under facilities, it's first of all bringing completion to the project. We probably, if it matters or not, I'll keep out in front of you that we know one part of the project will not be finished until next summer, and that's the elementary school canopy. So we could certainly extend this. I felt that, as I encouraged the board to set its goal last month, much of the project should be done within the next month. And then goal 6, focusing as the board set a goal of that long-range facility plan, so that I would be there facilitating, assisting, leading the board through that work and that discussion. And then finally, goal 7, I don't know if it's really that useful or meaningful, because really the 6 superintendent goals really match those goals, those 6 goals of the school boards. So this is a prepared draft for your consideration, open for adjustments, modifications, and would like to have your input. And but if the board was ready tonight, would certainly invite a motion to approve the goals and the superintendent goals for this school year. Questions?
And I'd just like, on the 2017, to re-examine the ISG to make sure all these little projects that were the cheap cost to more on the maintenance side of it, whether they're roughs or whatever, that's very important to, I guess, and commend you for all the extra stuff on the COVID already this year.
You're correct. You know, we do have a good start, a document,
Yeah,
you know, for that facility assessment that we need to continue
can't just
to
put it on the
build, to build
shelf.
upon.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the superintendent work goals as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Schultz, seconded by Mr. Schlake, to approve the 2020-2021 superintendent work goals as presented. Sue, please.
Roll call vote. Joanne Maloney,
Aye.
Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Rowe,
Aye.
Neil Schley,
Aye.
Dan Schmidt,
Aye.
Rick Schultz,
Aye.
and the motion carried 6-0.
Finally, in student achievement and support, we're looking at school year learning model update. Dr. Carlson, anything to add there?
Well, this, in working with Mr. Schultz to plan this agenda tonight, we just felt that the board may appreciate an opportunity to have an update or discussion about where we're at. And I'll simply provide you an update, and then there really isn't any intended action planned or no recommended motion or action with this tonight, but it's an opportunity for the board to have any dialogue or discussion it may wish to have on this. As you know, right now, we continue to be in the hybrid learning model for both schools. We continue to be specific to Waseca County. If you go by the weekly MDH number, it continues to be very high. It has been that for the last 4 to 5 weeks. Publications. It has been really examined weekly on our public health calls, looking at the correctional facility and examining what's happening there between residents and employees. So I do want to let you know that that's examined closely, and I want to thank not only Waseca County public health officials, but Minnesota Department of Health, who really help many of us better understand the data and get to the point of feeling comfortable with where we're at with things. I know it can be the last few weeks especially, it's when you look at that countywide number, that 14-day number, it's hard to look at times, and yet when you break it down and better understand, I feel that we're okay sitting where we're at. But remember, this is, as I've shared in different communications, this can all change overnight. It can change very rapidly, whether that's even if we have cases within our buildings, or looking at, as we get every day from the state and the county, you can look at the numbers of what's happening. So we're following those closely. As we sit here tonight, I do not have a recommendation to move, for the board to consider moving a learning model at this time. As I've shared with publicly, I think that the projection, Waseca County specific, if you separate the correctional facility numbers out, we're sitting in the 20s, projecting to go downward to the low 20s. But I would caution us to totally dismiss the correctional facility numbers. And that's the common thing too, the common recommendation from my weekly calls with the public health officials. We shouldn't be totally dismissing that number, but it is a less weighted factor, if that makes sense. So right now, I don't have a recommendation to consider moving either way to a more restricted or a less restricted model. I cannot project out when that might be. I know that people, including me, we are anxious for the day when we can consider beginning with bringing our elementary students all in person. And that's a priority.
Yeah.
So it's a priority for all our kids, all grade levels, to bring them back. But I can say right now, and that would be the natural progression, the next step when that happens, to bring our elementary kids all in person.
On that note, Mr. Carlson, how is that Wednesday, is that relieve some of the anxiety with our staff? I mean, has that gone over?
The Wednesday change, I believe, has been a positive. I think that, I'll mention, by the way, we're having another check-in with our planning group tomorrow. And so looking forward to hear from them, how they think it's going. So I think in general it's been a positive, Mr. Slate. So I want to thank the board for your support of that. I think there's no question we need to continue examining and evaluating to see how we can continue to get better at beginning, as you know, at that meeting or at that time, our full-time distance learners, continually, that's a challenge area that we need to continue looking at, making sure we have, our teachers have time to make sure we're giving the time that's needed to our full-time distance learners as well as all our kids. But so we'll be looking at it more tomorrow and getting some feedback. But I would say overall, it's been positively received, especially with our staff. And we're going to continue looking and see how we can even improve it even more.
And the students are just continually getting better at their social distancing and the mask, that's all going real well?
Overall, I will continue to say, overall, our students are doing a great job. They really are. Are we all, we're all getting, I'll say the word tired, but and of course there's that term of fatigue, the COVID fatigue, but that's even more reason why, our students are doing well, our staff are doing everything right as far as helping not only our students, but one another. And, but it's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard. And the hybrid learning model is, you've heard this before, it's really hard. And even that day when we return to in person for, begin with our elementary, we are still going to have our full-time distance learners. And so we have to continue looking at that, see how we can get better at that as well. But I can't say enough about our staff. It's amazing what they're doing every day under the conditions of what they're doing. And that transfers over to our parents at home. I tell you, more than ever before, talk about having to partner and work together. We know the struggles our families are experiencing right now. To have your child, You know, we have kids here 2 days of the week, you know, each student, and it's just not easy all the way around. But I'm proud of what we're doing, what we've been able to put together, but we're going to continue looking to see how we can improve. I don't know if I have any, I did want to say, there's been, if you've been monitoring the numbers, Steele County has, we need to keep watching all 3 counties. But Steele County, I was on the weekly call with the Steele County school districts today with Steele County Public Health, and the numbers aren't, the trends aren't encouraging there either. And so we're watching those closely, and remember, you know, the majority of the largest number of our students are residents of Waseca, but we also have approximately 30% in both Steele and Freeborn. So we can't ignore those counties, and we have to monitor all of them. And so we'll just have to see what the weeks bring coming up. And there is concern, not just about Waseca County, but the others as well. What other questions or could I answer, or what other comments do board members want to make?
Dr. Carlson, I would just like to unofficially kind of start this discussion as far as, in the event the numbers drop far enough to where we feel we can start bringing a less restrictive model. I would like a little bit of a feel from the board if they're comfortable with Dr. Carlson and myself making that decision, or are you more comfortable in calling a special meeting at that time and coming together as a board and discussing? And again, I know there's not any formal action here, but I think it bears a conversation as to how we as a board would like to see that address it. And Dr. Carlson, please advise me if there are any regulations on how that should or shouldn't work.
No, I appreciate you bringing up the question. And you know, the resolutions that the board has approved in the past has specifically stated that in the event the board can't be convened or the decision needs to be more timely, that the superintendent would work in conjunction with the board chair to make that decision. So so I don't have anything further to add. This would be, you know, either way, but I think right now, as Mr. Schultz is communicating, especially even looking at becoming less restrictive as the numbers allow in the data.
I guess this is Travis here. I guess I wouldn't mind even, you know, I guess I wouldn't even mind even just actually setting up I'm okay with the board chair and the superintendent making decisions, but I'm not at all against setting up a meeting for, say, 2 weeks with the sole purpose of evaluating the learning model myself.
Yeah, I agree.
I would have to say that I think we're all anxious to bring our kids back in person. Some would say that it probably does allow time for the entire board to convene. As you may recall, there was a time where we were going the other way, and the question would have been, do we really have time to convene a board before we have to make that decision to get more restrictive? In this case, some would say, you know, there isn't that urgency that would require the superintendent and board chair to do that. If we're talking about becoming less restrictive, it might allow more time for the board to convene as a whole, and especially if you want to schedule something a few weeks out in advance.
But I'm all right even, I mean, if I have opinion, I'm reaching out to Mr. Schultz or yourselves to give you my 2 cents worth too, so you know where I stand on it. I mean, but I'm not opposed to the 2 weeks out either, but.
It might make sense to try to do it on like a Thursday evening when we've got the most recent data, rather than on a Monday where it's already a few days out. Just a
I
thought.
agree. We're always looking for the, waiting to see what the trend is, then we can tack.
Well, you're right, Joanne, then we theoretically could have it like a week and a half, you know, and that would be 2 more reports then.
Yep.
Otherwise, do we want to look at the 13th when we're already meeting?
Well,
Can you do that at the same
the
time?
question was the 13th, that's a Friday the 13th. The board does meet on the next Monday,
True,
the 16th.
true.
That's like 3 weeks.
If there was a desire to meet before then, such as like the Thursday the 5th or something, or whatever the board wishes to do, but,
And yet, if we're gonna go back and follow that guidelines and the resolution that we made for the board chair and the superintendent, then I don't know what we're gonna accomplish at a meeting either, if that's where we're gonna go back to.
well, it kind of responds to Mr. Schultz kind of bringing this up. Maybe this is helpful in itself, that if we're kind of hearing that there is a desire, what I'm kind of hearing, I guess, is that there is a desire and an okay for the board as a whole to convene,
Yeah, and I thought,
to consider this. And whether that's setting a meeting now, or if it kind of based on where we think the numbers are going,
I guess my feeling on this subject would be that we do have to have some numbers that are encouraging bringing that back. And so what I was after was this feeling of the board being willing to come together, which I feel comfortable that you all are. And I think instead of saying tonight that this is the date we'll have the meeting, could you either just forward that? We're all paying attention to the numbers, so when you get to that level, either talk to Dr. Carlson or myself on that subject, and we'll plan that meeting instead of just kind of throwing a dart at a date that we think might be the answer, and if that's satisfactory, Dr. Carlson and I will communicate that along with other members individually contacting one or the other of us on the reason to get back together, I guess. If that number doesn't drop down, don't expect that meeting next week, I guess is my point.
Makes sense to me, Rick.
I'm kosher with it also.
I think that Thursday meeting idea is a good idea.
We would definitely try and target a Thursday that would provide us the freshest data that we can make decisions off of. But again, please feel free as board members to contact either Dr. Carlson or myself on that if we see that number coming down, and we'll leave it at that without necessarily putting a date on it quite yet. What is our requirement, a 2-day notice, Dr. Carlson?
3 days.
3 days, excuse me. Is that satisfactory with everyone?
Yep.
I'm good with it.
Thank you.
Dr. Carlson, this is Travis here. I have a question.
Yes,
I've kind of lost track of it a little bit myself. I know things have been changing weekly. But do we have a handle on the learning models that some of our neighboring districts are in right now? I have a tough time finding that on the internet. Unless I've been doing a little bit of calling people from other districts, but I really don't have a handle on what other people are doing real well. Do you or anybody else there at the meeting?
yeah. Mr. Roth, the most I could say that the other two Waseca County schools, they are in the hybrid models. However, to that, remember, is in both those school districts, in some of the lower grade levels, they are able to accommodate under the hybrid guidelines. And so that still is confusing for some, similar to what we're doing with kindergarten, I guess. I think that the Steele County schools, some of those, the secondary, as far as hybrid goes, I think you're going to find most of the elementary in person. As far as under the hybrid rules, though, that they're able to do that with. But Mr. Roth, I guess I honestly don't have a good sense of the surrounding schools in general to really talk tonight to their specific models.
Okay.
Travis, you had mentioned that you had talked to some. Would you mind giving us a little update as to what some are doing?
Oh,
Sure.
I have in the past now this last week or two. It's almost kind of confusing talking to some parents about it because I don't get a very good handle on it. I suppose they're all leaning on that social distancing aspect where they can stay open, but I just kind of, in the past, talking to other people, it seemed like we've been on the conservative side of things as far as I have heard us, I think there's been whole classes, I won't say any town names, but I think there's been whole classes quarantined in a few schools for a certain period of time, which I guess I would kind of expect that, but in certain cases. But yeah, as far as exact towns and exactly what they're doing, I'm not 100%.
Right, yeah, you're seeing some schools having to quarantine classes or grade levels based on cases happening. I would have to say, we still are doing very well with no positive cases and minimal numbers as far as quarantines, as far as students and our staff. I think that as we move forward, I think it's a very good possibility that is in itself what might impact either one of our buildings as far as having to quarantine a certain number of students and our staff. So we just have to deal with that if it comes, like other schools, even close by, are having to experience right now.
So I wonder if the question could be asked then, if we keep cruising along here without much trouble. I know the state has their guidelines and whatnot, but I think it should bring the conversation of going to a little more open model at some point if we keep cruising along with very little cases, very little quarantines. I think all of us board members keep getting feedback every single day, and it's very one direction on the way the community members and especially parents want us to go with this.
How's our staff doing with with their morale and the challenges they're facing? And how are they feeling from a safety perspective? I suppose you'll get an update more tomorrow, but do you have a sense of that at all?
Yeah, like I alluded to earlier, we've talked about this in the past, how we're just not designed to do the hybrid model and the full-time distance learning model, and let alone trying to do both at the same time. And but I tell you, so Ms. Maloney, it's hard. And their time, if you really think about what they're trying to do and the schedule they're trying to keep, and I'll speak specifically to the secondary school, really now 4 days out of the 5, when kids are present, we're doing regular schedule. And for the most part, the Wednesdays, trying to maintain a fairly regular schedule with all of them online. It's just the time that you have to sit back and plan and communicate, it's very challenging right now. And this will be one of our focuses for the conversation tomorrow. What other ideas do we need to consider, especially on the time piece, for our staff to really work together and again, look at how we can get better and for our kids, for our students. But it's, would going to all in person improve things? I think in some ways, yes. In other ways, it's going to, for our 10 to 15% full-time distance learners, that's even going to be more challenging in many ways. Because if you're going to have more of a normal schedule of bringing students back, when is that teacher going to have time to work with the full-time distance learners? And so that's part of the conversation to be had yet as well. So they're, just proud of them. They're doing the best they can, but it's really hard right now.
Thank you.
Dr. Carlson, this is Rich. I know we've got those full-time distance learners, but if we go back to all in-person, will we still have those distance learners, or do they have to come back also?
Families still have the option to, this year, to be on full-time distance learning.
Thanks.
Well, I didn't have anything else really to present. I don't know if there's anything, other questions or comments?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Schlake, seconded by Ms. Maloney to adjourn. Sue, please.
Roll call vote, Joanne Maloney,
Aye.
Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Ralph,
Aye.
Neil Schlake,
Aye.
Dan Schmidt,
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye.
Motion carried 6-0.
Meeting is adjourned at 7:43 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good
Good
night.
night. Thank you.
See ya.